I'm here with Robert Ayson, who is a Victoria University Professor of Strategic Studies and also directs the Centre for Strategic Studies. And I guess just as an initial question, you talked about New Zealand's involvement in Afghanistan, and I guess just looking at, we've been there now for about 9 years, why did we go in the first place, and what was happening when we went in?
Well, obviously, one of the key issues for our initial involvement was, like a lot of countries, we supported initial action in Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks. There was a strong international condemnation of those attacks. There was very strong United Nations Security Council support for that. We were fully in behind that, and so we were part of an international effort to try to make sure that this sort of event wasn't going to happen again, that there wasn't going to be a possibility for groups in Afghanistan to basically pose this international terrorist threat. We also, of course, but countries do have a range of reasons. We also were thinking about our relationships, our reputation in the international community, in the United Nations, the good international citizen stuff, but also, of course, the relationship with key partners and friends, the relationship with the United States, the relationship with other countries, Australia and others. And as time went on as well, we were managing to develop a bit of a relationship with NATO, and so there is some interest there too.
You talked a lot about relationships being sort of the most important, and you went on to say that it's not so much a military problem but a political problem in Afghanistan. Do you think the relationships that we have with other countries are sort of the key reason that we went in, or?
I don't know if they're the key reason we went in, but they certainly, I think, as time went on, became increasingly significant as reasons to stay in. But of course, we also have that sense that that this is still in part about our concerns about international terrorism and the concerns that some of our friends and partners have. There's also, in a sense, different aspects of Afghanistan. There's the role, for example, that we play in Bamyan province, the reconstruction role, which is a long-term role. It doesn't have a large military footprint. We are increasingly civilianising that role, but there is, of course, a military role there to support an aid effort and a reconstruction effort, and so that, in a sense, is part of what we're doing, and so there's a sense of a sense that perhaps that job isn't quite done yet.
Keith Locke was saying, "Pull out now." What do you think about that?
Well, there are quite a few people around the world who are saying that. There are governments that have come out, of course. One of the issues, of course, for New Zealand is that as some governments have gone out, our place there, the fact that we are a member of the coalition, in a sense, becomes, if anything, more significant in broader political and diplomatic terms. So I think for a government, for a New Zealand government, it is actually quite a difficult decision to make. We don't want, for example, I think it would be difficult for us to say, well, look, let's just go, and then we'll let the Aussies and the British and the Americans and others do all of this.
So it wouldn't be a good look.
I think so, but then you then have to assess that against the other issues. If you think, for example, that that it doesn't really matter what we do, that the situation in Afghanistan is that in a sense there is a claim that things are going backwards rather than forwards. So there's an interesting debate to be had there. But I think be a difficult decision for a government to say tomorrow we go, and I think that's probably not what this government is going to do.
Just as a final question, you talked about New Zealand's involvement needing to be grounded and humble. What do you suggest are some of the ways, just briefly, that we can be really constructive in our involvement in Afghanistan, and maybe what are some of the unconstructive ways that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, I think actually we are quite modest in what we seek to do, or how much we don't pretend that we are, in a sense, a really major factor in Afghanistan as a whole. But I think my comments about the modesty and humility was more about when people argue that we shouldn't use military means, that we should solve conflicts before they become conflicts, that we should use aid and development and diplomacy, that we've got to be modest and humble even there. Our ability to shape the decisions that other sovereign states make is very limited. And so I think it's that modesty and that humility that needs to be there. So as long as people don't think that there are these easy solutions, and as long as they're aware that for a lot of decision makers they don't have a really, really good option and a really, really bad option, they often have a series of difficult options, and they have to choose the one that they think is best for New Zealand's interests and also for the broader international interest. And I think that's the sort of thing. And I think is and I think in a sense as Christians, being aware of the challenges that decision makers do face, and the way they do often think very carefully about the decisions they make, and the way that we can support them in prayer, that's part of the things that we can do.
Thank you very much.